Hey everyone, I'm Kylie Schlesinger, and I'm currently in my last year of orthodontics residency.
And I'm Michael Schlesinger, Kylie's dad.
And this is Medical
Medical
Morons.
Morons.
Each episode, we'll be picking the brains of some of the most successful healthcare professionals who have mastered the art of running their own businesses.
Join us as we ask the questions you want answered.
No jargon, no fluff, just fun and easy conversations on building a thriving practice. Let's
Let's
get
get started.
started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Medical Morons. Today we're diving into a topic that every single one of our guests has emphasized, which is the critical role of advisors in building a successful private practice. You hear it constantly. Literally every single person we've talked to has said, my advisor was key. I couldn't have done it without their guidance. So for this episode, I wanted to go straight to the source. Joining us today is Justin, or JJ Ditkofsky, the founder and CEO of WeCare Practice Advisors, one of North America's largest and most respected healthcare specialized real estate advisory firms. With over a decade of experience, JJ has advised thousands of doctors on strategic real estate decisions that directly shape the success of their practices. WeCare is renowned for its expert guidance on everything from practice startups and acquisitions to office expansions and complex lease negotiations. So I know these topics can be dense for some people, including me, but this was such a good conversation for you to get yourself to start thinking about these things, like just get your feet wet. And we also talk a lot in terms of dental practice, but just because that's my background, but WeCare helps all types of healthcare related businesses.
That was
Right?
really interesting. I mean, totally different slant on the conversations we've been having. I like his discipline. I think for people who are starting out, everything's so scattered. It's like so many different considerations, and where do I begin?
And he organizes the information really well. I think working with him, you would learn a ton. And just even from this episode, I mean, it's crazy. There's too many things to consider in owning a practice. So he helps kind of open my eyes to the other things that can go on in a really digestible way. And I like the name We Care. It does feel like he really cares about a good outcome.
It's interesting because coming from my side of it and the experiences I've had with clients over the years, one thing I always tell people when they're contemplating a deal, you need to think about how you're going to get out of the deal. And you don't have to have it specific, but you have to have at least an idea because it drives a lot of how you structure the deal, the terms you negotiate, things like that. And I think that's consistent with what he was saying.
So let's welcome Justin Ditkofsky to Medical Morons. So I found you through Dr. Jackie Dukansky, who we had on and we adored her. She was awesome. Um, and I thought it would be really cool to have someone like you on who is the entrepreneur focus of dental and healthcare practices. That being said, I'm such a medical moron that even looking through your bio and all of that, I'm still like not entirely clear on in what stage of the practice ownership model people start to hire you and what you do. So do you mind just giving kind of like a simplified version of I guess a little bit into how you got there because it's pretty niche, and then kind of talking about what your goals are for your advisory firm.
Yeah, totally. So I started WeCare we're talking 7 years ago now. WeCare is now one of the largest and fastest growing dental and healthcare specialized real estate advisory firms in the country. We work on hundreds of practice startups, acquisitions, office expansions, relocations, anything that is interconnected to the commercial real estate of the practice, which is, a lot, is our hyper specialization. But to answer your question about at what stage do we generally get involved with, practice startups, I would say like we're one of the very, very first pieces. A lot of doctors will get in touch with us before they've put a business plan together, before they have even spoken to a bank. We have a lot of new grads that reach out who are like, I have ambition of being a practice owner. It's not a today thing. Could be a year from now. It could be 5 years from now. I'm in the kind of R&D learning phase of that journey. We will educate them on the process from financing and the types of banking partners you want to work with and what you're looking for, to demographics and competition analysis. Because, what's interesting about dentistry and a lot of healthcare businesses is that they're hypersensitive to the location and the physical space. The location is key. It really has a huge impact on the success of the practice because, and I mean this in the most respectful way, you could be the world's greatest clinician, but if you open it up in a location that is overly competitive, overly saturated, it will be exponentially more difficult to build a successful business than if you're a good clinician, but you open up in a really underserviced, opportunistic location. And unfortunately, most business owners, not exclusively dentists, are at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of how do we find those areas? Where do we go? How do we get help? And that's really the genesis behind, how WeCare got started, right? So bringing this back full circle to your original question of like, well, how did you get here and what's the story? I come from a finance background. My background is real estate, private equity, real estate development. I've been obsessed with real estate development since I'm a kid to understand how did somebody envision buying that like old dilapidated property and conceived of building this like massive, beautiful tower. Like, and what happened in between? It was like, that was my obsession since I was a kid. And then I connected the dots that, wow, the guys who actually do this make a really nice living. There's a future here, right?
Win-win.
Yeah, 1,000%. So background, real estate, private equity, real estate development. When I graduated from college, I ended up working for a company that was hyper focused on healthcare and real estate, which was funny because, never thought I would kind of intersect those verticals. But I always wanted to be a developer or a pediatrician. And unfortunately, when I went to high school, the more physical sciences like biology and chemistry just didn't click, but it was gifted at math. So like numbers worked. Like I speak numbers. So when I graduated college, I was like, look, I really want to do something that intersects with real estate and healthcare. And I ended up working for a company that was, dental real estate advisory and consulting. And I helped them scale significantly. And I was hopeful to buy in or become a partner. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. And so I left 8-9 years ago. And I ended up going back into like more formal real estate. I put a pretty high profile development deal together. It got picked up by a real estate private equity firm. They were like, come work for us. I had just incorporated WeCare. Weeks before this deal closed, I had already made the decision of I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to take what I learned from my old company, apply it here, and really take this to the next level to fit that gap in the marketplace to help doctors. And, the private equity firm approached me with a very lucrative offer. And I was like, guys, I just incorporated this business and I'm going to focus on dental and healthcare real estate. And they're like, look, we don't care about that. If you want to have a side business, have a side business. Welcome to private equity. You're going to be working easily 80 to 90 hours a week. You're going to make more money than you've ever conceived of in your life. And if you still want to, have this side hustle of dental real estate, wish you all the best, right? So about 3.5 years of juggling private equity and launching WeCare, and then WeCare just continued to grow and continue to grow, largely because my philosophy in business has always been provide a very valuable service or experience at a reasonable price, and most importantly, provide exceptional customer service and experience. Not rocket science.
What do people come to you for? What's the suite of services? Is it as simple as somebody who is looking to start out on their own and you give them the assistance on location and relationships with vendors and things like that?
So first of all, yes, very much we help with a lot of practice startups. That is definitely a focus of ours. On the practice startup side, it's everything from helping you understand a bit more of what your business strategy is. Because we'll ask a lot of questions of like, what's your goal for the practice and where do you want to take it? And what are the services you want to offer? And kind of what's your dream, right? Which a lot of times when we ask these questions, the doctors we speak to are like, oh, I never thought about that. I just want to have a business. And it's like, well, let's unravel that. but it's everything from just like very high level business strategy to demographics and competition analysis to we have a national network of commercial real estate brokers that we partner with to help find locations, to we have an in-house legal team and they are hyper specialized in dental and healthcare lease negotiations, to national partnerships with companies like Henry Schein, to marketing firms, architects, designers, contractors. So like we effectively help project manage the entire startup journey. That's kind of the suite of services for startups. But practice startups and or acquisitions is only one, call it, bucket of clients that we work with. We also do a ton of work with existing practice owners who have a lease agreement coming up for renewal, and they signed a 10-year lease agreement 8 years ago or 9 years ago when they started the practice, and they didn't know what they were doing. And, they maybe signed a less than favorable lease, and or the rental rates in the area have gone up, which, historically they always do. And now the landlord wants like an exorbitant increase in rent. And we will help them renegotiate their lease during a renewal or an extension of their lease. We also work with doctors who want to expand their offices, where we get calls from clients who are like, hey, look, I've outgrown my space, but there's nowhere to go. Right. And I try to explain to most doctors, just because you're in an office building or you're in a shopping center and the space next to you or on either side of you is rented or occupied, doesn't mean you can't expand. These are the types of conversations landlords love to have. Hey, I'm a tenant in your building, been here for 3 years, 9 years, 27 years. I've outgrown my space. Is there a way to, move some pieces around to free up some space for me? Landlords love that. That means you're established. That means you're low risk. You have great covenant, and now you're increasing your footprint in their building. We also work with a lot of doctors who are gearing up for retirement or sale, because unbeknownst to a lot of doctors in the later stages of their career, the lease agreement can make or break the sale of the practice, right? Like when you're selling a dental practice or buying a dental practice, part of what you're buying is the goodwill, the cash flow, the EBITDA, like, all the kind of financial elements of the business, but you're also buying into the facility itself, right? Like building a dental practice is incredibly expensive and time consuming. And when you sell a practice, what generally happens is the seller transfers or assigns their lease agreement to the buyer. And when that happens, you need to go through a formal process with the landlord. It's not like, hey, I'm a tenant in the building and I can transfer it to whoever I want at my own discretion whenever I want. You need the landlord's consent. And the way a lot of commercial lease agreements are structured is the landlord has an unreasonable amount of control over that process. And we have a lot of doctors reach out before they put, the for sale sign, figuratively speaking, to make sure the lease agreement is properly set up for a sale, right? So making sure that there's term on the lease and renewal options and the language is clean. So we work kind of cradle to grave, from doctors who are new grads, associates, maybe, been practicing for years and ready to go into pursue a startup or an acquisition, to mid-career doctors or established doctors who need help with a commercial real estate requirement, to late-stage doctors who are gearing up for sale. And then we also work with DSOs, even though the DSOs are, generally quite sophisticated and they might have private equity backing. Real estate is still one of these pieces that's a challenge for them.
So for the starting out dentist or doctor, what do you see as kind of common mistakes that they make, just based on your experiences with working with them? Are there things that, they just typically miss that are, the basics that you guys can help with?
The common mistakes that I would say a lot of younger, I shouldn't even say younger, but doctors starting practices make is, number one, they rush the process. B, they don't have the right people advising them and taking them through kind of the scientific process of doing it properly. And number three, they don't really take the time to put a business plan together. And I would say number three is probably the most common. Is it's like, hey, I want to start a practice. And it's like, let's just go start a practice. And it's like, you are about to invest $500,000 to $1 million into this, but putting the cash aside, you're about to invest a ton of time and energy into this. And it has an impact on you for the next 5, 10, or 20 years.
Can you give an example of what a a business plan that you recommend for young doctors, dentists would look like?
Yeah. And by the way, what I mean by business plan is not necessarily that like you're actually, drafting a formal business plan. Like I recognize that most people, again, not exclusively doctors, but most people do not know how to put a business plan together. Okay. They've never done it. They weren't taught how to do it. But what I mean by thinking of the business plan is just like actually putting pen to paper, like opening up a Word document and just doing some bullet points on what is my vision and goal for the practice. To start, what type of dentistry am I going to focus on? That's probably the easiest place to start. Do I want to just focus on bread and butter dentistry? Do I want to do more high-end cosmetic dentistry? So I would say number one is thinking about, what is your vision in terms of treatment? Number two would be, what is your ambition for the practice? Like, do you want to be practicing wet finger dentistry? Or is your ambition to be more of a business operator who's not delivering clinical dentistry, but more so focused on running the business? Because that very much impacts the strategy, right? Like most doctors these days are more interested in being business operators than clinicians. They don't necessarily want to, drill and fill for the next 30 years. They want to run a business or run multiple practices and benefit from the passive income of having other people run the business for them. And that changes the real estate strategy, right? So when doctors say to me, look, I really want to grow and I want to have associates, we're probably going to need a slightly larger space than if you said, I want to be the one delivering dentistry for the next 30 years. It's just going to be me. I don't want to bring in other doctors. I want to be the one in there, right? Again, it doesn't have to be put a business plan together. It's like, just make some notes and think about what do you want that business to look like, and understand you don't have to have all the answers.
I think it's really smart also to have it all written down because it's so macro and it sounds, silly. Like I know that in my head. I don't need to write it all down, but I think your vision can get lost when you're looking for all these different places. You mentioned a little bit about DSOs earlier, and that's something that, I don't know if I'm fearful of, but I'm trying to learn as much about because it's obviously going to impact our profession for just healthcare in general. How has your advising changed based on the new landscape?
To be honest with you, I don't know if I would say that like our our advice has per se changed because of the growth of corporate dentistry. My opinion, for what it's worth, is I think over the next foreseeable future, we will continue to see a lot of consolidation in the industry. It makes sense. Like if you understand business and you understand why people are so attracted to dental practices in particular, we're talking about like recession-proof brick and mortar businesses that are generating 18 to 20% margins. It's a great business. It's a great business to own. But you have to also keep in mind, like, the DSOs are still a fraction of the industry. We're talking like single digit percentages, right? But the majority of the industry is still sole proprietors, one office, maybe two offices. And I don't think that will necessarily ever change. I think that you'll still see corporate dentistry become more and more prevalent, but they're still going to be, individual operators. The one thing I think it has changed is that it's forced a lot of people going into private practice to think about the exit. And what I mean by exit is eventually you're going to sell the practice that you're buying or starting. Maybe that's not 5 years from now. Maybe it's not 25 years from now, but it's forcing people to think about, when I am ready to retire and I am ready to sell, what's that going to look like? And is my practice going to be appealing to everybody, whether it's another doctor or a DSO? And the reality is that for most DSOs, they're not interested in the smaller offices. They're not interested in the 3-op offices. In fact, nowadays, a lot of them aren't even interested in 4-op practices. They're looking for minimum 5-op practices because they want to make sure that the office can support 2 doctors. I think when you're starting a practice and you're starting any business, whether again, it's a dental practice, it's some other healthcare clinic, or it's just you're starting a tech company, which, I didn't go into that, but I helped launch a fairly successful tech company in 2019, and I'm not involved, but had a bit of experience in tech and venture capital. You have to think of the exit. right? Like you're not building a business just to have a business. You're building a business to have passive income, hopefully, and eventually sell the business. Um, I do think it's created more competition and it has driven up valuations for businesses, which is good for doctors selling, not as good for, doctors coming into their first practice. And I do think that we'll continue to see valuations expand as more private equity firms come into the space and there's now more competition. It's basic economics, right? There's more demand, prices go up, right?
Are you seeing a common multiple either on revenue or operating margin that, I mean, obviously it's going to vary market by market,
I was going to
situation by
say like
situation.
yeah,
But is it 1x revenue? Is it 0.5 revenue? What does
honestly,
that look like?
most groups are more looking at a multiple of EBITDA. And for anyone listening who doesn't know what EBITDA is, EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization. If you Google it or again, ChatGPT it, you'll get a pretty detailed explanation. It's essentially like earnings after expenses, generally after remuneration to the doctor or providers, what's left over in the business. Um, and and Michael, to your question, it's really hard to answer that because it's hypersensitive to specific markets. Like valuations in Manhattan will be different per se than valuations in Albany or upstate New York. It also changes based on the business. Like, for example, is this a practice that is unbelievably efficient and there's not really a growth opportunity here? It's like, hey, it's an ADOP practice. It's collecting $3-4 million. Their systems are unbelievably efficient. There's no real growth. What you're buying is a stabilized business that is generating cash flow. That might get a lower multiple than a practice that is plumbed for 8 ops, but they're only utilizing 5, and they're referring out a lot of the specialty work that, some of these groups are like, we're going to bring that in-house, and they're not really doing a lot of marketing, which I would define as like a value add opportunity, right? Like the corporate or buyers would say, hey, look, I can add a ton of value here. Practice has been around for a long time. They're not doing marketing. They're only open 3.5 days a week. You know, I could totally grow this business. I'm prepared to pay a bit of a higher multiple of EBITDA because, there's huge growth here, right? So there's a bunch of different metrics. If I was going to say like giving you some like ballpark multiples, I would say, probably healthy to look at it from like a 6 time to call it like 8 to 9 time multiple of EBITDA. That's what a lot of groups would be looking at. Um, but I'm also hearing about groups that are, selling, like consolidating or forming a group and then selling 20 or 30 locations at once at like a 10 time multiple, 11 time multiple, because you're benefiting a bit from economies of scale.
A topic that recurs with these podcasts is insurance.
Right.
And whether people should take insurance in their practice or, which it capitates the reimbursement, or whether they should just stick to their own fee schedule and, either let the patient deal with the insurance reimbursement, or maybe they'll process some paperwork, but they're not tied to the fee schedule of insurance. What's your take on all that, from margins, from ultimate value on selling your practice, on getting started? Because if you don't take insurance, obviously there's a patient population that you won't be able to tap into. What's your view on all that?
So, first of all, preface by saying I am far from an insurance expert. I think it's very much, again, dependent on the business and location. Like, I think for a doctor starting out, you're going to have to get a network, like whether you kind of like it or not. Like, I don't think it's really hard to start a practice from day one and you're exclusively fee for service. So I think that it's about, having a bit of a healthy balance of being in network with the right insurers, and having the right team to negotiate those deals. But I think that the ambition for a lot of groups is to have more fee for service than insurance if you can. And again, like the insurance companies have a great racket, right? Every year they change their fee guides. It drives your margins down. Like I've had countless doctors talk to us being like, look, I'm accepting these patients. We make like no money. And I'm like, then why are you doing it? They're like, well, because we want to grow. And I'm like, but you're not really growing. you're actually kind of stagnant or even contracting because it's taking time and energy away from being able to focus on the business and focus on patient care for the people that you do currently have, right? So I wish I had like um, a more definitive answer for you on the way to approach insurance. I think again, it's very hypersensitive to location.
When you say it's sensitive to location, does that just mean in terms of patients' expectations on fee rates, their kind of demographics and ability to pay? Is that what you're
Yes.
referring to?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Correct. Like, part of the exercise we take every doctor through when you're doing a startup is understanding like who are the providers here and who do I have to kind of get in network with and what does that look like? Because you have to understand like we kind of go backwards when we're helping someone start a practice. Like it's like what's the vision and where do we want to go? But then it's like what's our budget? What can we afford? How much are we getting approved from the bank? What's our rent budget from the bank? Because when you get approved for financing, the bank's going to say, hey, we'll lend you $800,000 for your startup, but your rent can't be more than this, right? So we know that there's some healthy margin in the business to service your debt. Um, we go backwards to think, okay, well, how many chairs can we get and how much dentistry can you produce here with conservative assumptions, right? Okay, it makes perfect sense. You can build a really wildly successful business here, or you can't because your costs are too high. And, based on the insurance providers that dominate this area, it's going to be tough, at least for the first few years, right? So,
So I mean, that's an interesting point, which is probably obvious, but not in that if you are looking to start a practice in a mature, saturated market, I guess you're effectively banking on taking business from other dentists because people already have a dentist there, or they're not getting dental care or medical care. And so that's kind of the nature of your business. Whereas if you're starting out in an emerging market where there's not a mature medical or dental community, there's more of an opportunity to get fresh kind of greenfield business. And
totally,
I
totally.
think that's a different mindset. Going back to your business plan, what do you want, right? I mean, is location, geography your primary consideration? In which case you may have to deal with a mature market and basically cannibalize the practice opportunities, or are you
Right.
going into a new market where you're basically the first one in town and you have the first mover advantage?
Yeah, exactly. Like, look, I think part of it, and this goes back to our demographics and competition analysis is we're opening up. Who are we competing with? What are they doing? What are they not doing? Does that align with what I'm looking to do for my practice? And so it's also about looking at areas that are growing, right? Which is one of these metrics that I'm always mesmerized that people do not look at, right? You can look at like tools like dentographics or so on that'll say, hey, like here's observed growth of an area. But something I tell every doctor when you're thinking about areas is which areas are experiencing a lot of development, right? Where they have like new towers going up or new subdivisions getting built.
So we've talked a lot about a location of where you practice, but the other component of real estate is the actual space. I'm curious,
Yes,
what are some key things new dentists, doctors, healthcare workers should be thinking about when it comes to a space?
for sure. First of all, before I recommend this to everyone, even after you find a space and you're like, oh my God, I love it, it has potential. Before we start negotiations, we always bring in a contractor and a designer and or equipment specialist to look at the space to determine is it feasible? How many chairs can we get? How can we potentially lay it out? But also all the mechanical elements like plumbing, electrical, HVAC, because when you're building a dental office, those are some of the biggest line items and capital expenses is updating the plumbing. Can we core, which means like you drill holes in the concrete or the floor? Do we have to trench? And these all impact costing to build an office. If you're opening up ground floor, is there underground parking? That way you can core. If there's no underground parking, it's more challenging. If you're opening up on like second floor, third floor, 19th floor, what's below you? Because generally you need to go into the unit below you to run the pipes. there's a whole bunch of variables that we look at to determine like is it feasible or not.
Definitely. So you're talking to all these healthcare providers all the time. If you could pick like three qualities that you see in young, hungry potential entrepreneurs that you notice you're like, this person's going to be successful, what are those attributes?
I would say number one is that they're focused, because I do see a lot of doctors like are like, hey, I want to start. And it's like, okay, cool. So let's unravel the vision and the plan and let's start to develop a bit of a strategy and execute. And it's like weeks upon weeks of delay of them like, I don't know. Okay, I got to fill that out. I got to find it. It's like, if you're ready to do it, let's focus, because it takes on average like 12 to 18 months to start a practice. You got to find a location. We have to negotiate a letter of intent, which is like the initial proposal with the landlord. It could be 4 weeks, could be 8 weeks to negotiate the letter of intent. Then we get to the lease agreement. Lease agreement in most major cities could be 40 to 60 pages. It could be another 2 to 3 months of negotiations of the lease. Then you're designing your office during that period of time. Then you got to apply for permits. Physical construction can take 5 or 6 months. Then you do a soft opening, grand opening, and that's assuming you have a location tomorrow, right? So it takes time and it takes mental focus. Number two is being organized, having your financial documents ready, getting it to the bank, not taking 4 months to figure out. And I would say most importantly is having a vision for the practice. Because where I find that a lot of doctors struggle is they're like, I don't really have a vision. I just want a business. And it's like, cool, totally get it. But let's take a bit of a step back and think about what do we want that business to do? And what are you hoping to get from that business? So the three would be, focus, organization, and vision.
Totally. No, I think those are key. And that's when I'm hearing that, I'm like, Dr. Jackie has that check, check, check. So she's going to be great. We already know that. Last thing, if people want to work with you, what can they expect financially?
Yeah, totally. We offer a few different options. So number one, we do work by the hour, which I don't always recommend, but depending on what you need, we do hourly work. Our hourly rate today is $375 per hour. Keep in mind that our rates usually go up every year or every 2 years. So for like most projects, they'll hire us on a flat rate basis. We charge a flat rate of $8,000. And that includes everything from demographics, competition analysis, general business strategy, helping you with site selection and helping you find the right space, to lease negotiations, to introductions to contractors, architects, designers. Like, we effectively help you project manage it. And, very openly, that's part of the reason that we have become one of the largest and fastest growing dental real estate advisory firms in the country, because as I said to you from the beginning, my philosophy in business is to provide great value at a reasonable price and amazing customer service. And so, you hear what we do and you're like, it's only $8,000. Like, maybe some people are like, oh my God, $8,000 is a huge amount of money. People who've been through it are like, wow, how is it possible this is $8,000? Like, there are companies that do what we do and they charge $70,000. Right? It's not even like they charge 15 or 20. They charge $70,000, right? So
I'm like gonna throw up. Craziness.
If there's a pearl of wisdom that you would impart to people starting out, what would that be? On a practical day-to-day level, any kind of common mistakes that you've seen that you would call out?
I wouldn't say common mistakes. I think the one pearl of wisdom I would share is think a little bit about the lifestyle that you're hoping to achieve. Like, do you have a family today? Do you want to have a family? Where do you want to raise your family? Because you don't want to start a practice, let's say in Manhattan, and then move to upstate New York, and you're commuting hours upon hours every single day, right? And you also just have to get comfortable with a bit of the unknown, right? Like, you're starting a new business, you've never done it. You don't need to know everything today. You're going to learn a lot of it. It's really not rocket science to start a practice. Just take your time and do it properly, and make sure you have the right people supporting you and giving you advice.
Totally. No, I think that's really good advice. Okay, final thing. Usually we ask doctors like if they've had any crazy patient stories, funny anecdotes they can share. So I'm curious for you, if like a crazy instance happened, is there something you can think about that's just like, oh my God, cannot believe this?
I'll give you one that we're working on right now, which is a client in Oregon. He's outgrown his space and we're in the process of moving him. Without going into too much detail, the landlord found out we were leaving and lost their mind and drove a truck into the practice over the weekend. Like no one was in there or got hurt, but there's your one for your
Oh
shock.
my God.
Okay. We've seen things go into lease agreements that are extremely religious, right? Where it's like, if this event occurs, all the agreements are canceled. And
Messiah's arrival.
Yeah,
Right,
and it's like,
right.
no, he's right. And it's like, is this for real?
Although, I mean, taking a step back, if the Messiah does come, all bets are off, right? I mean,
Sure.
that's
Sure.
fair.
But like, I don't need it. You don't need it in writing. Like, it's an understanding, right? So,
Right. It's like, okay, right. We're resetting it.
If that's all their request is, though, then
right,
we're
right.
doing
Yeah,
well.
like, how does the bank lend against that?
Right.
Like, okay, we're lending you like $1 million, but then like, this person believes the Messiah is back.
Right.
And,
right.
Like, how do we define the Messiah is back?
Right. Oof.
Like, tough underwriting. Yeah.
You need to hire a psychiatrist.
Like, how many people have to say it happened or didn't happen? Do I have to see them? Do I have to shake their hand?
Right. We need concrete evidence.
We've seen some real funky stuff. Like,
so funny. All right. Where can people find you if they want to learn from you, work with you, all the things that they can get to know what you do?
Yeah. So like, first of all, like definitely lots of information on our website, which is you can Google WeCare Practice Advisors or go, our domain is drwecare.com, but doctor like DR. So drwecare.com. People are welcome to email me. They can email me at justin@drwecare.com, and we're always happy to educate. So those are probably the two best ways for people to reach out and like even just to have a conversation about, here's what I'm thinking. I want to learn more. We're thrilled to educate and help.
That's awesome. Really appreciate it. This was really informative. So thank you for taking the time.
That was great. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Of course.
All right. Bye. Thanks for listening to Medical Morons. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review.